A couple of things. My wife graduated from St. Xavier's in nursing school, in the interest of full disclosure, and I was lucky enough to go to Marquette. So with that prelude, our guest today is president of St. Xavier University. She was appointed nearly 5 years ago. Founded roughly 170 years ago, St. Xavier University is the oldest Catholic university in Chicago with a total enrollment of over 4,000 students. Prior to serving as president of St. Xavier University, she served as provost of Loyola University, Chicago. She earned her undergraduate degree and her law degree at Marquette University. And she is so smart, and she brought her husband, Bill, to join us today. Let's give him a round of applause, Bill. And let's welcome the City Club of Chicago, Christine Wiseman. Christine, thank you.
Thanks, Jay. I'm really glad you mentioned my husband, but I'm glad that you didn't ask him to introduce me because he usually refers to me as the woman who can't keep a job. Thank you, everybody, for your generous opportunity to step up to the platform here at City Club. This is a first for St. Xavier University, and we're really pleased to have the opportunity. In fact, I find this particular place one of my most reliable sources for interesting people and information. So I hope to be able to do the same thing for all of you today. It goes without saying that I'm pleased to be representing St. Xavier University, the oldest Catholic university, as Jay said, in the state of Illinois. We refer to ourselves proudly as Chicago's university on the South Side. Our 170-year-old legacy has been one of bringing education to populations that historically have been underserved. It began with women and girls in 1846, and it adheres to that critical legacy today by serving a population that looks an awful lot like the demographic of 21st century America. That legacy will continue next fall when we bring programs in liberal studies, nursing, education, and business to the people of Gilbert, Arizona. And they sought our presence, knowing that the Sisters of Mercy were the first group to bring health care to Arizona when they opened St. Joseph's Hospital in Phoenix in 1895. I'd like to begin by just showing you a little bit of who we are.
A liberal arts education is more than just a degree.
It's about learning and evolving in a place where tradition and innovation meet.
It's a balance of embracing history while challenging the expectations of our future.
It's where scholar meets athlete.
Artist meets researcher.
Leadership meets service.
And inspiration meets opportunity.
See beyond the degree where possibilities are endless. Find your balance at St. Xavier University.
Folks, that's very much what we look like as a university. And today I'm going to address some topics about which everybody has an opinion, from President Obama to the guy who colors my hair at Maxine's down the street. But not everybody has the facts about what access to higher education really looks like now, even more so into the immediate future. So my purpose this afternoon is to Google you down from the view at 20,000 feet to the view at the front stoop. On September 11th, 2013, the Chronicle of Higher Education published an online article entitled "Public College's Quest for Revenue Squeezes Needy Students." It was written by Marion Wang of the independent newsroom ProPublica. It was reprinted in the full version of the Chronicle on September 20th. The article told the story of Shaniqua Epps, an African-American high school graduate with a 3.8 GPA who had served as secretary and then president of her high school's student government and who played varsity basketball and softball as well. A resident of subsidized housing in South Philadelphia, her father died when she was in 3rd grade, and her family lived on her mother's Social Security disability payment of about $698 a month. She was admitted to 3 public colleges in Pennsylvania. and awarded the maximum in federal Pell and Pennsylvania state grants, but could attend none of the institutions to which she was admitted because after maxing out on federal loans, she would still incur a tuition obligation of $4,000 a year, close to half of what her mother received annually from Social Security. As you might expect, the result was an impossible burden for her or her family. The reason for the higher than anticipated net tuition cost, which her family couldn't afford, in financial aid parlance, it was pretty simple. None of the institutions to which she was accepted would augment her federal and state aid with a single dollar of institutional financial aid. The amount of money that all of us allocate from our own budgets for merit aid, or more importantly, to try and bridge the gap between the cost of tuition and funded aid from government grants and loans, for which students like Shaniqua cannot get there themselves. In a very real sense, Shaniqua Epps found herself voted off the island. Now, why focus on Shaniqua? Because she looks an awful lot like the next generation demographic of this country, and she looks an awful lot like the students who comprise 52% of the undergraduate population currently enrolled at St. Xavier University. I brought some of that wonderful population with me today. They're actually getting directed research credits for time spent with the president. But I'd like to introduce them to you for just a moment. Adriana Montgomery, go ahead, stand up. Maria Aranda. Sydney Harris. Hey, Sydney. Allison Gedke and Bridget Gedke. And if they look like you're seeing double, or you think you're seeing double, you are. They are twins. Last fall, 2,974 undergraduate students entered our doors. Over 90% of these students are from the state of Illinois, and 33% of those from the city of Chicago. Over half of these students, nearly 52%, receive federal Pell grants, federal Pell monies, which are federal monies reserved for low-income students who've not yet earned a baccalaureate degree. Nearly that same amount of students receive MAP grants from the state of Illinois, which are monies awarded to similarly needy students from the state of Illinois. More to the point, our Pell-eligible families are among the most needy, with the financial ability to pay only $871 each year toward the cost of their education, and 57% of those can afford to pay nothing at all. Our undergraduate population is also 61% first generation, and 42% of them are either Hispanic or African American, two groups that have grown to 42% and 16% in our freshman class alone. But these students we are educating are the demographic of the next generation in America as well. The National Center for Education Statistics is the primary federal entity for collecting and analyzing data related to education. It's located within the U.S. Department of Education and the Institute of Education Sciences. In February of 2014, the National Center for Education Statistics published its annual projections of education statistics out until the year 2022. This is the 41st report in a series that was begun in 1964. That report includes statistics on elementary and secondary schools and post-secondary degree-granting institutions. In addition to projections at the national level, it also includes projections of public, elementary, and secondary school enrollment and public high school graduates to the year 2022 at the regional and state levels. I think you will find their projections interesting, because this diverse group of students is not only the people we will educate, they are also the people you will decide to hire or not. Generally, by the year 2043, which is less than 30 years from now, the United States is projected to become a majority-minority nation. And while the non-Hispanic white population will remain the largest single group, no group will constitute a majority. More specifically, if we look at projections about the diversity of our public high school graduates between now and 2023, we find that the number of white public high school graduates will decline by 16%, and the number of black public high school graduates will decline by 14%. But the number of Hispanic public high school graduates will increase by 64%, and the number of Asian public high school graduates will increase by 23%. If you examine this next slide, based on statistics from the National Center for Education, you can see what things will look like in our educational institutions by 2023. We will be 45% white, 30% Hispanic, 15% African American, 5% Asian, and 5% other, a composition of multi-ethnic groups. And the next slide will show you what St. Xavier looks like already by comparison. I could say we were prescient, as we were in 1846 when we first opened our doors to women and girls, who've also, by the way, made their way now from minority to majority status. But I really couldn't prove that to an absolute certainty. Then again, as a lawyer, you know, a reasonable certainty works for me. And so I will say to you that we are prescient in preparing ourselves already for success in educating this population. But there are limits to what they can afford and what we can do. Educating vulnerable, underserved populations poses its own set of risks. On September 16th of last year, the Census Bureau reported that the median U.S. household income for 2015 was $51,900. Ben Castleman, former reporter for the Wall Street Journal, who covered the U.S. economy from 2006 until 2013, indicates that that household income, after adjusting for inflation, is essentially unchanged from the $51,700 it was in 2012 and 8% lower than it was in 2007, the year before the recession began. If you look at this next slide, figures provided by our enrollment consultants, Hardwick Day, with whose permission I am showing you this slide, you will see that the median household income hasn't shown a statistically significant increase since the recession ended in 2009. The U.S. Census Bureau also provides a breakdown of mean household income by self-identified ethnic groups. Even in 2005, the mean household income of Hispanic or Latino families was only $45,800 and only $40,600 in African American households. Similar observations have been made by the Pew Research Institute. That is why, ladies and gentlemen, to retain and educate this population of students, my university spends over 39% of its operating budget in institutional aid, those elusive funds to which Shaniqua Epps had no access. But the college readiness statistics for students of color are also staggering. According to ACT, better known as the American College Testing Service, 90% of Hispanic students and 96% of African American students nationally do not meet all 4 college readiness benchmarks in English, math, reading, and science. In Illinois, the statistics are only marginally better, at 88% for Hispanic students and 94% for African American students. Both nationally and in Illinois, not one of the individual academic benchmarks was met by 50% of the students in either group. And of those who do not meet any benchmarks, only 37% of the African American, 41% of the Hispanic, and 47% of the white students will earn a college degree. which is why initiatives like Loyola University's Arupe College can truly be a game changer for the future. Kudos to them for using their resources in such exemplary Jesuitical fashion. But an institution like mine has neither the time to wait another generation nor the resources to open its own junior college. These students do not represent our future. They are our present, our now. And so we do some things suggested by organizations like Complete College America to make sure that they graduate. We have summer programs designed to address specific academic areas, academic pathway programs designed for first-year at-risk students, specialized advising and academic planning, early alert and assessment practices, and mentoring programs like the Academic Career Excellence Program in our School of Business. This mandatory career development and experiential learning plan in the business degree track is designed to help students select courses and focus their interests. It also provides them with volunteer and for-pay work opportunities. Beyond these, we make an effort in Spanish and English to advise our students and their families about the financial implications of college debt and the value of a college degree. As a result, our freshman retention rates from spring to fall, since fall 2012, have been over 75%, and our first to second semester retention rates hover at 85%. Our graduation rates, even with a population of this ethnic and economic diversity, have consistently ranged between 54 and 56% since 2009. You know, I gotta tell you, I'm always intrigued by editorialists and columnists who suggest that not every student has need of a college degree. I usually find that claim made by someone who's already college educated and successful. They cite the success of entrepreneurs like Bill Gates, Ray Kroc, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, Rush Limbaugh. But these are people who made the choice to leave college. They are not the people foreclosed of the opportunity. And then there are adult learners, people for whom a college degree was important to pursue even after they were successful, like Oprah Winfrey, Shaq O'Neal, and even Bud Selig, the commissioner of baseball, who started out as a car salesman in my hometown of Bayview, Wisconsin. The idea that people without a college degree can all grow up to be Bill Gates is as foolish as saying that everyone who can palm a basketball on a high school court can grow up to be an NBA or WNBA player. People like Bill Gates had choices and resources, or they had parents and friends with resources who gave them choices. They had access to a socioeconomic status our students simply do not know. I actually had occasion to test the importance of this premise a couple of months back with a really good colleague of mine. The individual was suggesting that what we really needed to do was respect the fact that some positions simply don't require a college degree. And we don't need to hire people with college degrees to fill them. And in that context, he talked about his need to hire an office secretary or manager. After posting the position, he had 4 final applicants: an individual with a PhD, an individual with 2 master's degrees, an individual with a bachelor's degree, and an individual with a high school diploma. When I asked him, so which of those 4 did you hire? He didn't answer. We all know why, and we all know the likely choice we would have made. The degree in hand is always the edge of advantage. Even law firms these days are demanding college degrees from receptionists, paralegals, administrative assistants, file clerks, and even runners. We've also read the stats about the income potential of college graduates. According to columnist David Lenhart of the New York Times, the pay gap between college graduates and everyone else reached a record high in 2013. Americans with college degrees made 98% more an hour on average in 2013 than people without a degree. for about $28,500, which is the average debt of those who graduated in 2013 from public and private nonprofit colleges in Illinois, $28,500, the students in our state can get a college degree, or they can simply go out and buy a new car. It'll cost them $32,500, and they're probably going to buy a car which is better than my Toyota Yaris. But consider the choice. But if you dig a little deeper and read the reports published by the New America Education Policy Foundation, you will also find that approximately 40% of the much ballyhooed $1 trillion in outstanding student debt in this country is attributed not to undergraduate education, but to graduate education, with graduates in medicine, health sciences, and law borrowing the most. Now, while six-figure debt is certainly significant, so is their income potential by comparison. St. Xavier University is and has been fully engaged in the Illinois public agenda for college and career success adopted by the Illinois legislature and by the Illinois Board of Higher Education in 2008. Those state educational goals target some kind of higher education certification for 60% of this state's population by the year 2025. We are doing our part to make sure that happens, but no mistake about it, they also have access to a pretty fabulous education in the process. An AACSB accredited School of Business, a School of Nursing recognized as a National Center of Excellence by the National League for Nursing for the third consecutive time. Online graduate programs that are ranked #2 in the country and #1 for veterans. Actually, I gotta be honest here, we got edged out of the #1 spot this year by the Medical University of South Carolina, but we are still one step ahead of Johns Hopkins. Eat your heart out, Johns Hopkins. We have a School of Education accredited by NCATE and CAPE, which is the second largest provider of teachers in Illinois at the graduate level. And like some of you others in this room, and by the way, I refer to her now as Dr. Barbara Bird Bennett, since she just got a doctoral degree from St. Xavier University last year. We all participate with some of you in the City of Chicago Learning Initiative, and we've partnered with Morgan Park High School at the mayor's request to offer dual enrollment programs for a cohort of senior students, and they will earn college credit and experience the learning support for which my School of Education and many of yours is really celebrated. And in our College of Arts and Sciences, we host a nationally ranked master's program in speech-language pathology, which holds only 37 spots that are aggressively sought each year by 500 applicants. As for programs in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, the famous STEM programs, our College of Arts and Sciences serves nearly 360 physical science majors and biology secondary ed majors, along with our 600 nursing majors. And we have 2 STEM education centers, one at Orland Park, one in Chicago, that have already served over 900 practicing Illinois teachers by providing them with the kind of professional development that they will need to succeed in providing qualified STEM education in our South suburban schools. Even now, folks, we're embarked on a capital campaign aimed at replacing our 1950s science labs, or at least renovating them. A lot of people question why you invest in that. As president, I will tell you this: we invest. I make the decision to invest in these programs and this infrastructure because our students deserve the same kind of excellent education as do the students who are able to afford the more prestigious universities. But we are not the only private independent institution that has heard the summons of the Illinois public agenda or embarked on this mission. And as a group, we are worth every cent of the state's investment in us. At a time when public universities have been truly suffering under flat funding by the Illinois legislature since 2000 and now face the threat of further funding cuts up to 20%, This state is really fortunate to have an abundance of private independent colleges who can help to shoulder that educational load. There are 97 of us, to be exact. They are places like those represented in this room: DePaul, Loyola, Concordia, Roosevelt, IIT. For less than 5% of the state's higher education budget, most of which is allocated to MAP grants for needy Illinois students, private independent colleges and universities produce over 40% of all undergraduate degrees and the majority of graduate and professional degrees. More germane to the whole issue of public access for the underserved, almost half of our four-year degrees are conferred on minority students in Illinois, and they are distributed by the private independent colleges. We also distribute more than 2/3 of the master's degrees and half of the doctorates awarded to minority students. The state of Illinois would need to appropriate another $1.3 billion in funding, think about that, to cover the kind of instruction we all provide. Certainly for all of us, public and private alike, I will advocate that this is not the time for the federal government to be cutting Pell or the Illinois legislature to be reducing MAP, especially one unlike our legislative colleagues who are here today and get it. There are so few who understand what we really do. We will bankrupt our future to pay the debts of our past, hoping that at some point we can recover, but by then, it will already be too late for the students of 2023. That's why people like me are always at the doors of people like you, badgering you for additional scholarship support, and I will happily stand at the exit to do even more. Since 2012, Moody's has maintained a negative outlook for institutions like mine because we've got small endowments, we depend on tuition revenues, and we depend on donors to fund our core business. Well, somehow, for 170 years, we've made it work, and we continue to make it work. But it takes really terrific teamwork among our administrators, deans, and cabinet-level vice presidents, among our faculty, staff, and trustees, for whom mission is bigger than margin, who understand that sustainability over generations will take more than finding the right president who can just go out and find the right enrollment manager, who can just go out and find the right mix of needy to full-pay students, especially when those full-pay students really don't exist. For all of us, it will mean taking the risk to diversify revenue streams, like our move to Arizona and our Center for Nursing Innovation, which now can actually process insurance instead of providing community health care for nothing. It means partnering with business or collaborating with other institutions, public, private not-for-profit, and for-profit in the South Suburban area, part of the South Metropolitan Higher Education Consortium, in order to minimize purchase power and to eliminate the duplication of programs. And we partner with IIT, we partner with the community colleges, we partner with Governor State. And it means serious collaboration between our universities and our community colleges, like our wonderful partner, Moraine Valley, whose president, Dr. Sylvia Jenkins, is with us, so that students with two-year degrees can eventually lay claim to that all-important baccalaureate degree. Let me close with this. My suggestion to students like Shaniqua Epps is that they better find an institution like mine, private, independent, probably faith-based, because we are incredibly effective, and we are not prepared to vote people like her off the island. Thank you.
Well, you might have had a bigger reception and applause if you had a A few more statistics.
Did you pay attention?
Every word.
Good.
I listened. For many decades, I've listened to university presidents. However, most of them didn't speak like that. Okay, anyone dare to have a question? We'll eliminate the students. We'll eliminate faculty without tenure. We'll eliminate all those cabinet members, which you called them cabinet members?
Yeah, vice president.
I'm sure, yeah.
But we also have 2 members of our faculty senate who sit regularly as ex officio members of the president's cabinet. So it's more than vice president.
None of them are going to ask a question. Okay. Anyone else? Raise your hand. Where are you, Jack? Well, Professor Green has a question. Well, someone has to ask a question. You watching this, Andy? Good. All that's well and good. Where's the money going to come from?
Good question. A lot has been written. We're trying some different things. We are looking at something I talked about, which is the diversification of revenue streams. We understand that it can't simply be tuition. There are limits to tuition. There are limits to the affordability that we can assist with in terms of our institutional aid. But I think it's going to have to come from collaboration. We're going to have to be concerned about how long it takes students to graduate. But that's not just a question of telling them that they have to graduate in 4 or 5 years. It means sitting down and actually planning curricula that can be accomplished and getting students to buy into that. For me, and for so many of our families, they don't understand that. You know, we have families where if there's a problem in the family, the kid stops out. You know, and I have to sit down with parents and say, look, it is important that your son or daughter be able to complete this curriculum. We will offer the kind of special advising, but it takes a much more broad-based approach than what we are doing. And I think Loyola is right with the junior level colleges. Certainly, I know Barbara is working with initiatives in the Chicago Public Schools to make sure that it doesn't just start at our level, that it starts actually below us so that we can acclimate students to that kind of mindset. I want to say one other thing. You know, I grew up on the south side of Milwaukee. I grew up at a time when women weren't going to college. They certainly weren't going to law school. My father and I did not see eye to eye for many, many years. He didn't see eye to eye with my husband either, but my husband's Irish. So, you know, and I'm Italian. But, you know, it makes a difference. I'm fond of telling people, when I grew up in Milwaukee, I didn't know there was anything north of Wisconsin Avenue in downtown Milwaukee. It just wasn't a place I had gone. You know, I followed the bus routes, and that's what I knew. So much of our work is creating an environment where students understand that they are expected and welcomed in those places to which they had never really been invited before.
Wow. Well, round of applause for our speaker. We got parting gifts. Always good to give presidents parting gifts. By the way, South Milwaukee did have, my wife went to Marquette too, the largest number of packaged liquor stores in the history of the world in South Milwaukee. It's a wonderful place. On behalf of the City Club.
We have 2 questions, actually.
We have a question?
Yes. I was wondering, could you address...
Identify yourself, madam.
Okay, Anne-Marie Miles. Hi. I wonder if you could address the issue of the impact of having a criminal conviction on applying for student loans and how St. Xavier may try to remedy that.
Easy question.
Well, we actually have had students who have been felons and they have rehabilitated themselves. I don't know precisely what the impact will be in terms of student loans, but I know that we admit them, and what we do when we make the decision to admit them is we will compensate for that in terms of institutional aid. Look, it's important for me, you know, I'm a former criminal defense lawyer. It's important for me to make sure that a segment of the population still has access, especially when they have rehabilitated. I had a student who was in that situation. You know, that student is now graduated. That student has one or more postgraduate degrees and is doing wonderful work and is providing a wonderful example to his own son.
Okay. On that note, let's give her a round of applause and we present our parting gifts. Madam President.